Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Lauren Izo. Coming up in this edition, clashes break out in Jerusalem as 80,000 Palestinians arrive to pray at the Temple Mount. Tensions spilling over from the Strip, too, as balloons from Gaza set fires in Israeli fields. And this Israeli set his sights above and beyond the basic confines of photography. Tensions are high in Jerusalem as Muslim worshippers continue day after day to clash with Israeli police on the grounds of the Temple Mount in the Old City. It's the site of Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest sites in Islam. On Saturday night, 80,000 worshippers took to the Holy City to mark the most sacred night of the year. Here's more. Clashes again erupted between Palestinian protesters and Israeli police early Sunday morning as Muslim worshippers left the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem after all-night prayers on Laylat al-Qadr, Islam's holiest night.
بدهم اشياء نصلي بدنا اشياء كل يوم بده يصير كوشه كل يوم بده يصير خبط كل يوم بده يصير مشاكل لهم اسبوع بدهم اشياء نخش جوا طب ليش امبارح ما خششناش جوا ليش بيسووا فينا غصب عنا بدنا ننجن.
At least 10 Palestinians were injured in the clashes at one of the entrances to the Temple Mount, where the mosque is located. Some 80,000 worshippers attended the all-night prayers at the mosque, and the clashes began after a short period of relative calm as people left the compound. Earlier, Israeli police blocked traffic at the entrance to Jerusalem, where dozens of buses carrying Muslim worshippers were on their way to pray at the mosque. Police say they had received information someone trying to enter the city had plans for an attack, the closures causing hours of traffic jams.
אני מבינה את הטענה שלהם, הם אומרים אנחנו רק באים להתפלל, אז למה עוצרים אותנו? אבל למעשה מה שאני מבינה שהרקע, וזה להבנתי הצנועה, הרקע לעצירה הוא א' בעובדה שהיו ימים של מהומות וגם היו מהומות באזור הר הבית ובירושלים בכלל, ולכן המשטרה כנראה חששה שהמוני בני אדם הרבה יותר מאשר כל שנה שמגיעים, זה עוד יגביר את הלחץ, אבל הלחץ שיצרו יצר עוד יותר לחץ.
The renewed violence following a stormy weekend in Jerusalem as Palestinian youths threw stones, lit fires, and tore down police barricades in the streets leading to the Old City. This as officers on horseback and in riot gear used stun grenades and water cannons to repel them.
وهي احنا متعودين على الاحتلال يعني ان اخذوا عده دور هان طريقه غير قانونيه وبدعوا ان هاي الدور لهم واذا احنا ما وقفناش مع هاي الفئه من الناس راح يلف هذا الاشي على داري وعلى داره وعلى داره وعلى كل فلسطيني عايش هان.
At least 90 people were injured Saturday night, including minors and a 1-year-old, and 14 people were taken to the hospital. Israeli police said at least one officer was hurt as well. Tensions in Jerusalem and the West Bank are spilling over into the Gaza Strip as well. Palestinians firing a rocket at southern Israel overnight, lighting fires and rioting along the border. The rocket fell in an open area, causing no damage or injuries, but triggering an IDF retaliatory strike on Hamas targets in Gaza. Also, incendiary balloons launched from Gaza caused numerous fires throughout southern Israel over the weekend amid rising tensions surrounding West Bank settlements. 5 fires were detected at the Kisufim forest and 3 others were detected nearby. Teams of volunteers and professionals from Israel's Fire and Rescue Services, the Jewish National Fund, and Israel Nature and Parks Authority were dispatched to the different scenes and managed to prevent the spread to nearby towns. Meanwhile, an exchange of fire on Friday between 3 Palestinian gunmen and Israeli border police at an IDF base. The incident left 2 Palestinians dead and critically wounded the third. No soldiers were injured, according to the police, and 3 guns, 3 knives, and bullets were seized. The injured Palestinian was evacuated to a hospital in Afula in northern Israel. On Wednesday, Israeli troops killed a Palestinian teenager during clashes near the Palestinian city of Nablus, and an Israeli teen shot earlier in the week by a Palestinian gunman died of his injuries. Well, what with COVID-19 fading from our headlines here in Israel, some say we could be overdue for an escalation. If the latest events are any indication, we could be heading for more. Let's ask Professor Ephraim Inbar, the president of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you, Professor, for joining me.
My pleasure.
So clashes on the Temple Mount are something we see quite often, especially during Ramadan, but this time it seems a little bit more extreme. Tensions are really escalating at Al-Aqsa, but also what with the evictions in Sheikh Jarrah, it seems like it's coming in a wave. How bad do you estimate this wave will get?
Well, actually, this type of problems on the Temple Mount are not new. And indeed, this time we have a concatenation of events. What you mentioned is a potential eviction of some Arab families from the house they were living for a while and replaced by Jewish settlers in Sheikh Jarrah. And also the new Jerusalem Day, which will be tomorrow. And all this adds to a very tense situation due to Ramadan, when we have heightened emotions, religious emotions. And we see younger people, that some of them are unemployed, go out and try to battle the police forces.
And on top of that, the Israel police yesterday blocked traffic on the highway to Jerusalem because of alleged intel that an attack was being planned. But then eventually they just sort of let everyone through and they opened the highway. What exactly happened here?
I think those were, the police stopped buses that tried to bring Muslim worshippers from the north of the country that are part of the Islamist northern movement in Israel, which is rather radical. And the police was afraid that this type of population will instigate further for violence, and they stopped them, and hoping that they'll come on another day.
So amid all these tensions, many countries, including but not only Arab countries, are calling on Israelis and Palestinians to calm the violence. One in particular, the UAE, is condemning Israel's response specifically. Do you think rifts like these will be an issue for the new relations between Israel and the UAE?
We should be aware that the issue of Temple Mount is a sensitive issue. But in the long run, if Israel will be able to calm down the situation, I think relations between us and the UAE, Egypt, and Jordan will return to normal.
And do you believe the tensions that are escalating right here in Israel are going to continue on that trajectory and continue to escalate, or they will calm down with the end of Ramadan?
We are in the Middle East. We don't know what will happen. There is always a possibility of escalation, of course. But Israel has to operate, in a wise way to prevent mistakes, as we've done. The police put unnecessary restrictions at the Nablus Gate. So if we'll behave with wisdom, I think those tensions will eventually go away after the Muslim holidays end this week.
All right. Professor Inbar, thank you so much for joining me today.
My brother, Effie Gordon, he was murdered because he was Jewish. It was not a robbery. People on the scene heard voices that they were like hate voices.
Effie came to America to be by my sister's wedding, and he was actually staying at my parents' house, which is in an area in Baltimore which is almost only religious Jews live there. It's a very Jewish area, and clear act of hatred, anti-Semitism was definitely involved.
Those were interviews with family members of Ephraim Gordon, a 31-year-old Israeli man who was shot to death last week in Baltimore. Police say it was a botched robbery, but his family believes it was an anti-Semitic hate crime. Let's say hello to Ghanarifkin, a producer and reporter here at ILTV, who grew up in Baltimore's Jewish community. Chana, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So if you could just start by breaking down this story for us, what exactly happened here? What are the police saying about it? And what is this man's family saying?
So Ephraim Gordon exited his vehicle at about midnight. He was on the way to his house when shots were fired and he was murdered. Unfortunately, Baltimore police are saying, like you said, it's a botched robbery. However, because anti-Semitic slurs were heard, there is question among the people in the Jewish community as to what really happened and whether or not the police are doing all they can to really figure out what's going on here.
And where are those witness counts coming from? Where are those reports coming from that say that those anti-Semitic slurs were heard during this attack?
Well, the relatives were in their house, and they say that, according to one report, the report said that they heard what was going on outside. They didn't say exactly what was said.
As somebody who grew up in Baltimore's Jewish community, what was the anti-Semitism like there? Is it something that was experienced on a regular basis? What can you tell us about that?
First, I want to say that everyone knows Baltimore has a high crime rate. It's no surprise that there's violent crime in Baltimore. However, specifically targeted at Jews, it was not ever something that was common. Petty crime, robberies, once in a while maybe a beating, but not necessarily something that was targeted towards Jews because of the fact that they were Jews. Now, I remember several instances growing up where swastikas were tagged on schools or other institutions, on the sports field in middle schools and high schools. Maybe some anti-Semitic slurs were thrown about, harassment on college campuses here and there, but nothing that was really violent to this nature, which is why it's so surprising, by the way, and which is why I think that the local Jewish community, they keep a really close relationship and a great relationship with the community surrounding them. They wouldn't cry wolf like this.
An accusation like this, I'm sure, is extremely, extremely shocking for the community. And as you mentioned, it's a pretty tight-knit community. How is the community reacting right now, and how are they reeling from a report like this?
The Baltimore Jewish community is about 95,000 Jews, which is big, and they're ranging between ultra-Orthodox to Reform and everything in between. Now, we have many organizations, namely the Associated and the Baltimore Jewish Council, who are very involved, and many other organizations, the BZD, Baltimore Zionist District, and they have come together upon the rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S. this past year, which is at 14%, which is alarming to everyone, but specifically the Jewish community in Baltimore took it upon themselves to create a task force to combat this. And in the way that they are doing this is with advocacy, partnerships and relationship buildings with other schools and communities in the area, just to educate everyone around them to who we are really, and so that we can all get along.
Interesting. Ghanarifkin, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Moving now to something a little bit more uplifting, literally. One Israeli photographer decided that taking pictures of people or nature wasn't enough for him, so he set his sights much higher, all the way to space. Daddydiag is an astrophotographer who takes extremely close-up and extremely detailed images of the sun and other planets, including most recently Jupiter. Hey, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, it's my pleasure.
So I'm really curious to know, how did you first get into astrophotography? It's a really interesting profession.
Yeah, so it's not my profession, it's more of a hobby. And I was interested in space actually ever since I was very young. My grandfather would take me to build all kind of stuff, and then he had this book on how to build a telescope. So, you know, he would take me to build parts, and I would try to build it myself. And I was like 8 years old then. But later on, when I continued, when I was in high school, I built my first telescope, my first real working telescope there. And it was kind of a science project there. But I was always interested in space and physics and, you know, understanding how the universe works. Yeah, that's what's got me started. And then when I was older and I could afford, you know, something more professional and serious, I got into this. I got into this hobby again. Then I set up, you know, to to get the best possible images.
So tell us technically, how are you capturing these images? I mean, they're really impressive. They're very, very close images of things that are extremely far away. What equipment do you need to use to capture these things?
Yeah, so first off, you need a telescope, and the larger, the better. And of course, it depends on the type of target. For example, if you're trying to capture the sun, then you would use special filters to filter and block most of the sun's energy. And then if you want to capture deep space objects, then you want, more light gathering. So it's just the opposite. You want more light gathering, and you want a bigger telescope to collect as much photons as possible. And then you use a cooled astronomy camera to reduce the sensor noise and all that. And then, try later on to process the images and get them as sharp and as clean as possible.
All right, Daddy, please keep up the great work, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Are you looking to relocate? A new luxury real estate development in Jerusalem wants you to have the holy city in your very own backyard. ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh went to go check it out.
The city of Jerusalem. There's absolutely nothing like it in the world. Israel's capital is filled with so much meaning and ancient history, from the centuries-old pathways, the bustling Machne Yehuda market, the old city itself, and who could forget to mention the Western Wall. We went to check out the latest luxury residential complex to give you an idea of where you could potentially be living. So we are right now here at the Savion View residential building in the heart of Jerusalem. Tell me a little bit about the project.
Yes, so we are on the 21st floor, and this project is located on Jaffa Street, which is the main street that comes from the entrance to Jerusalem and goes to the old city.
It might not look like it right now, but in less than 2 years, this is going to be one of the most luxurious real estate opportunities to buy in. You guys are not going to want to miss out. It's walking distance from some of the most historic places in the world. That's the light rail right there, no?
Yeah, there's the light rail, and the market is behind this building.
So they're walking distance from the best public transportation in Jerusalem.
It's 1 minute.
Yeah.
Less than 1 minute. It's downstairs, the street in Jaffa Street, and the market is 2 minutes from here. Half of the apartments have been purchased already. Families that want to live here, and investors from United States and South America. And we have Israeli people, most of them from Jerusalem, who are buying here either to live here or to invest. We have it here a 1 to 3 bedrooms apartment. We have also the penthouses with 360 degrees view. It's going to be 27 floor building. We're going to have 2 roof gardens. One is 400 square meters and the other is 200 square meters. I mean, everything you need is a walking distance from here.
Whether you visit Israel a lot and are looking for a beautiful, luxurious vacation home, or maybe you've decided you want to make Aliyah and are looking for that perfect home, or maybe you're looking to invest, the Savion View is the spot to check out.
You can't be wrong here because this is a very, very prime and unique location, and it's a very safe opportunity to invest in.
The Savion View project is actually designed by one of Israel's leading and oldest real estate companies, Africa Israel.
Africa Israel has been around more than 80 years. We build all over the country, from the north until Jerusalem, from Harish, Petach Tikva, Nes Ziona.
For people who love Jerusalem, this is the place to be.
With all of this going on, you can sometimes forget that Jerusalem has become a very modern and up-to-date city with some of the most delicious restaurants, top universities, beautiful museums, and of course, a ton of shopping. So if you're already considering moving to Jerusalem, definitely check out the Savion View residential projects, because this could be your backyard.
Let's speak to the VP of Marketing at Africa Israel, Dan Gingis, and learn more about their newest project in Jerusalem City Center. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining me. And I have to say, the project looks extremely stunningly beautiful.
Thank you for having me here. Well, our project is really a special project in Jerusalem. It's located, as you've seen, in the heart of the city center. Basically, in real estate, and especially in residential real estate, what is important is the location. The 3 L's of real estate: location, location, location. Well, we have all 3. On top of that, I think that the view that you can see from the 27-story tower,
it looks incredible.
It's incredible, and you can see the Mount Temple, which for Jewish people, you know, it's the more than the top tier that you can get. So basically, it's the best place to be in Jerusalem.
So tell me a little bit about the features of the apartments. What will make them extremely unique?
So first of all, we decided to have a very special apartment mix, which will be nice for people from abroad and also for local customers. We have 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms apartments, penthouses, and this mix of apartments is very special to find in Israel because usually in Israel nowadays you don't find the smallest apartment anymore. It's much more difficult to find 2 or 3 bedroom apartments, and in this tower you can find it, so you can have what they say in France, pied-à-terre in Jerusalem.
Okay, so we saw Emmanuel got the chance to go check out the new development, but how can people who are actually interested get more information, perhaps come check out the construction site? I don't know what you're allowing potential customers to do. What are the possibilities?
So we have an office on the Cook Street, just next to the project, and we welcome all the clients. And they can ring us or come over, and we will be happy to show them the apartments.
And when is the building expected to be ready for people to move in, to start enjoying it?
Oh, the last quarter of 2022.
All right, not that far away.
No, not that far away.
Are you working on other projects other than Savion around the country? Tell me about some of the other sort of buildings that people might be interested in.
So Savion is a master brand name for Africa, Israel. And basically, we are working on a national level. We are operating from Kiryat Bialik in the north to Nes Ziona in the south, and all in the interim. So, for example, we have a very, very big project in Tel Aviv called Duo Tel Aviv. We have projects in Jerusalem. We have actually 5 projects in Jerusalem. This is only one of them. We have a project in Katamon. Katamon is an area of the city which is now reviving. So we have 2 more projects with more than 1,000 apartments in Katamon. We have another project in Ramat Sharet in Jerusalem. And we will also be active in the long-term rent apartment in Arnona.
All right, of course, we just came through COVID-19, the global pandemic, which really affected the real estate market. But now, I assume, since it's relatively behind us, that things are back up and running again. What is the status of the real estate market right now?
So actually, the residential real estate was not really affected by the pandemic.
Interesting.
And it is now booming. And not only with Israeli clients, we see many, many clients from abroad actually trying to avoid what's happening overseas and coming here to Israel. It's like a safe haven, and buying apartments, whether for investments or for living, making their aliyah. We see more and more of them, and we hear voices of many more coming in the future. We're hopeful.
All right, well, our main focus of this interview is, of course, the Savion project. So I wonder, what is the main sort of attraction? What is the main thing that you think is going to bring people to come live in this unique location?
So as I said before, that's the location, that's the view, and those are the special amenities that we have in the building. So we have prepared 2 very, very nice rooftop gardens.
I was just going to mention those rooftops. Yes. They look amazing.
Yes, very, very nice rooftop garden for the leisure of the clients. One on the 10th floor and the other one on the 21st floor.
Wow.
So the view from there will be amazing, and people would be able to come to picnic. It's very,
maybe
very,
hold
very
events
nice.
up there,
Exactly.
have parties up there. Now that Corona is behind us, people can actually enjoy each other's company.
True.
All right, Dan, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, let's take a look at the weather forecast with Ghanarifkin.
Thank you, Lauren. Now, lows this evening in the upper teens and 20s in Celsius, and temperature highs tomorrow getting up into the upper 20s and 30s with partly cloudy skies. Very hot, seems like pool weather, but be careful and wear your sunscreen. Now back to the studio.
Thank you, Chana. And now just before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. That definitely looks like an Israeli stairwell, one of those, old buildings that they have around. Oh no, she couldn't keep her balance. Uh-oh, not a good day for that lady. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.25 shekels to the American dollar and 2.68 shekels to the Canadian dollar. And finally, for the latest updates and news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as our newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Lauren Izzo. Thanks for watching.